Morning and welcome to the September 5th City Center Community Committee, our regular meeting agenda. Right following Pirogue, welcome back to Councillor John Orlikow, Councillor Cindy Gilroy, and Kate McMillan. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Gorgeous territory where many people spent a lot of time fishing and enjoying the territory in Treaty 3 during the summer. We need a motion for the minutes of the previous meeting. So moved by Councillor Gilroy and also by Councillor Orlikow. So that was carried unanimously. Today we'll start with the semi-annual summary of delegated authority to award per capita land dedication and community incentive grant. So moved. That was moved by Councillor Gilroy. That's a delegation instrument that's important. It helps us move grants out further. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have quite a few extensions of hours, 2, 3, and agenda item number 4.
To move from 2 to 13.
2 to 13. So then also moving a variety of occasional liquor permits. I understand there might be 2 more occasional liquor permits that are happening. These are a lot of festivals and more. Councillor Gilroy, would you be willing to move the additional 2 more that are on the agenda? And probably also move that we need to put them on the agenda.
Yes.
And that's suspension of the rules. So moved both by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. The Land Dedication Reserve Fund for Linden Woods Community Center is item number 14. This is for a cross-country ski, skate path, and tractor upgrade fun times by Councillor Orlikow, I believe.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank Winnipeg Trails, because they did the pilot project out there. It was a grand success. And now the community center has decided that they want to carry on with the idea and use that space in winter. So that's why I left it on the agenda. That's just to thank Winnipeg Trails and the handlers for doing the pilot project and showing people that that space can be used in the winter for a cross-country skiing. So happy to support it.
Thanks so much, Councillor Orlikow. Great initiative, cross-country ski initiative. All those in favor?
Aye.
The petition results of the proposed asphaltic concrete lane pavement local improvement is to be advertised. That's number 15. This is for something in Fort Rouge, East Fort Garry on Windermere Avenue, Somerville Point Road. There is a recommendation here. Is there a mover?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Unless we have additional items or reports, we will break to the public hearings.
So moved.
Okay. That's a very good.
Great.
Thank you. Welcome back to the September 5th City Center Community Committee. We're in the hearings portion of the committee. We're starting off with a zoning agreement of 1811 Jean Bédébeuf Place.
So in accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the public hearing process brochure, which is available on the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. So item 1 is a zoning agreement amendment at 1811 Jean Bédébeuf Place under file ZAA 6 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely item 2, which is a variance at 1811 Jean Bédébeuf Place under file DAV 158686 of 2024D. Please note that communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. And I'll pass it over to planning for an overview.
Morning, Kitty. The subject property is located in a decommissioned railway corridor on with frontage on Jean Bédébeuf Place in the J.B. Mitchell neighborhood of the River Heights, Fort Garry ward. The property is located within a mature community under Complete Communities 2.0. It is zoned RMFS, is approximately 43,000 square feet in size and currently vacant. The immediate area is characterized primarily by single-family dwellings to the east and multifamily dwellings to the north and west. In 2007, the property was approved for a 36-unit development in conjunction with the north abutting development at 18 Corydon Avenue. Each development was to have 18 units. The 18 Corydon Avenue portion was subdivided off and built several years ago with 18 units. The applicant seeks a zoning agreement amendment and variances for height, density, landscaping, yards, and parking in order to build three-story townhouse buildings with a total of 40 dwelling units. The zoning agreement amendment is required because the zoning agreement caps the height at 30 feet and the requested height is 38.5 feet. The zoning agreement caps the unit count at 18 and the requested unit count is 40. And the zoning agreement has a substantial conformance clause with the plans that were approved in 2007, which are no longer applicable. The proposal provides a high-quality building design with articulated mixed material facades, landscaping, and a zoning-compliant number of parking stalls. Through the planning process, the applicant agreed to make a few changes. These included maximizing the landscaping in order to soften building fronts and add bench seating for some outdoor amenity, provide some material variation between the buildings and units, provide accessible pedestrian connections per the zoning bylaw. The applicant indicates that they conducted public engagement that included a total of 4 direct meetings with nearby residents on 2 occasions. The division supports the applications because a townhome development is well suited to the long, narrow shape of the former rail corridor. It aligns with Complete Communities 2.0 and complies with the city's sun shadow guidelines. The development will have a similar physical characteristics as recently supported projects or approved projects in the vicinity, including the north abutting 1810 Corydon Avenue. The proposed 40-unit density is within 10% density variance of the Winnipeg zoning bylaw for RMFS. The property is a 3 to 5 minute walk from Corydon Avenue. And finally, Public Works and Water and Waste indicated no concerns with the 40 units. That's the introduction.
Any questions at this juncture? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay, we have the applicant here with us today, Brendan Salico, if you want to come up. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. And Brendan, will you also be joining?
Yeah, I'll actually be presenting this one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is that okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. Just take a second to get the presentation set up. Good morning, councillors, clerks, and administration. My name is Brennan Johnson. I'm a planner at Landmark Planning and Design. We're located at 298 Waterfront Drive here in Winnipeg, and I'm joined by my colleague, Brendan Salico. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you today for proposed development at 1811 John Brebeuf Place. Paragon Design Build is the proponent behind the project. Affinity Architecture led the building design process, and our office led the planning, stakeholder engagement, and development approvals processes. I'll take a minute just to talk about the site context because it is a bit of an odd location. So the site itself is 46,600 square feet in area. And as Mr. Ross mentioned, it's a decommissioned rail corridor right-of-way. So while its address is on John Brebeuf Place, the majority of its frontage is on an existing lane right-of-way. Its northern boundary is townhomes at 1810 Corydon Avenue. It's bound to the east by a rear lane and then Centennial Street homes, to the south by John Brebeuf Place, and to the west by the Carpathia housing co-op. The neighborhood itself is well suited to this type of development. This site is already zoned RMFS to accommodate this type of development. It's well served by transit with routes 18 and 78 within about 300 meters of the property. The site is located on the existing and expanding active transportation network, and the neighborhood itself offers a number of amenities such as retail stores and services to residents. Just briefly, in terms of the policy context, our Winnipeg and Complete Communities both have policies and objectives that support a project like this one, including to encourage compatible residential development and align with the city's residential intensification target, to increase the population within established neighborhoods to contribute to their revitalization and renewal, to expand housing options in a manner that is sensitive and complementary to existing development, and to encourage a variety of housing types and tenures. The proposed design includes 3 stacked townhome buildings, one of which would have 16 units and the other 2 would both have 12 units. There would be a total of 40 dwelling units, including 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. 10% of them would be affordable under the CMHC MLI Select program. And the proposal also includes surface parking, a total of 48 stalls, but broken up through several smaller parking areas between the townhome buildings. There would be 5 designated visitor parking stalls, as well as accessible and van accessible parking. There would be bike parking for visitors and new landscaping provided as well. This is just taking another look at the site. So the larger building would be situated towards Jean Brebeuf Place, with the smaller buildings towards the middle of the site. And then just looking at the site context as an aerial view, the townhome situated with the Carpathia Housing Co-op to the west and Centennial Street to the east. And we've got a couple of renderings just to help visualize what that would look like. So this is a bird's eye view looking southwest, the existing neighborhood, the townhomes on Jean Brebeuf Place or at Gordon, and the housing co-op behind. This is a bit of a closer look, so you get a sense for the scale and bulk. And here is where you can see those smaller parking areas dispersed between the townhome buildings, which helps with accessibility and proximity for people walking to their doors. This gives you a better sense of the colors and materials. As Mr. Ross mentioned, we did work with the public service and do differentiate the patterns and colors throughout the 3 buildings to break up the bulk. This is looking from Jean Brebeuf Place where it currently terminates. So here, if you can see my cursor, this is an existing lane that provides access to the homes on Centennial Street. This fence is existing, and then this is another existing right-of-way that provides access to the townhomes on Gordon. Just one more view looking south from that existing lane. So you can see just sort of the configuration of the homes on Centennial, garages, lane, and proposal. And in terms of the zoning agreement amendment, as mentioned, this site is already zoned to accommodate this type of development, but the existing zoning agreement limits the allowable density and building height below what would be permitted under RMFS. So the total number of dwelling units on site was not to exceed 36 units in total. And a portion of that site was already developed as that 18 townhomes model on the northern part of the site, which leaves 18 for the southern portion. But without that zoning agreement in place, this southern portion alone would be able to accommodate 37 based on the zoning bylaw. And the height is also restricted in the zoning agreement to 30 feet, which is below the allowable 35 feet for RMFS. But we are requesting the zoning agreement amendment be amended to allow a height of 38.5 feet, and that's to allow for more livable units for the lower levels of the townhomes and let more light in. Just briefly, our engagement process, we did undertake a thorough engagement process. So we had the first round in December of 2023. We had 2 meetings with neighborhood residents, neighbors, stakeholders to introduce the project, share early design concepts, and understand their concerns. In March of 2024, we had another 2 stakeholder meetings and open house to provide a project update, introduce the preferred design concept, and continue to receive feedback. And then we submitted a development application in April of 2024. Just briefly in terms of what we heard, there were a number of comments or topics that we tried to address proactively throughout the planning process. So in regards to building design, massing, and aesthetics, the proposed design, features 3 separate buildings to help reduce overall scale and bulk of the development. And the buildings feature alternating colors, materials, and patterns. The proposed landscaping meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the building foundation landscaping due to that the treatment of the public lane with the townhomes. But there would be significant landscaping along the street edge, and there is still some building foundation landscaping. And all of that will help to visually enhance the site as well. In terms of height and privacy, as mentioned, we are looking for a height of 38.5 feet to allow for more livable basement units. And the townhomes are set back approximately 40 feet from the property line of the existing homes on Centennial Street, but it's closer to 80 feet before you get to any of the walls of existing homes. There is significant buffering to the west as well. There's a forested area at the Carpathia Housing Co-op, which helps to provide separation to and natural buffering. The project architect did prepare a sun shadow study, and due to the orientation of the proposed buildings, the existing mature trees to the west, and substantial setbacks provided, the shadow impacts can be considered to be minimal to the existing properties around the site. Parking was noted as one of the primary concerns, so the proposal does feature a ratio of 1.2 stalls per dwelling unit. We're not looking for a parking variance. Visitor parking will also be provided as well as bike parking. And with having 2 points of access, one to John Brabeuf and one to Corden, we think that will help to disperse traffic generated by the proposal. And we had questions and comments related to construction. So Paragon adheres to a set of courteous construction guidelines that are above and beyond the city's requirements for construction site maintenance. So if this were approved, Paragon will adhere to all city standards related to operation and maintenance during construction, and then go above and beyond that as well. We did work closely with the City of Winnipeg over the course of the project, and we worked to incorporate their recommendations prior to submitting the development application. And that includes by alternating the colors, materials, and patterns between the buildings to break up the bulk, revising the design concept to meet additional criteria of the development guidelines for mature communities, utilizing landscaping and benches along the east-facing building facades to create more of a front yard feel, and providing marked pedestrian crossings throughout the proposed parking areas as well to help with the pedestrian circulation. And we wanted to note that we agree with the Public Services recommendations as per the planning report. And in summary, we feel that this is an excellent proposal for John Brabeuf Place. The site is located in an area well suited to support it. It addresses the policies of our Winnipeg and complete communities. The proposed design meets the majority of criteria from the residential development guidelines. It would increase housing choice to help meet life cycle needs. We did work to address resident and stakeholder concerns while mitigating impacts, and it's the result of almost a year of collaboration with stakeholders and the City of Winnipeg. Thanks.
Are there any questions at this juncture, committee?
Nope.
There are no questions. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks.
I have no one else registered to speak in support of the application. Is there anyone here whose name hasn't been called who wishes to speak in support? None. Anyone in opposition? And also no one for information.
Are there any, you're ready? Any questions for this juncture? All right, we've checked on the hearing. Go ahead, Councilor Orlikow.
Okay, on the design agreement. Switch my old one. Switch over. That the report of Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
Very unanimously.
The receipt of public reputations be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very unanimously.
That the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in. And forward to forward to EPC via the priority rezoning process.
We actually received
Oh, we received
a
one.
submission.
Right,
opposition.
you're right. You did get a letter, right? So change that forward to the standing policy of property development. There we are. And supporting reasons. First of all, thank you to Landmark for all the consultation they did with not only the community, myself as well. Yeah, we had praise the whole way. That's why we had no questions. They answered my questions prior to going in. The massing was great. I think breaking that massing building down was very helpful, put some air and some space into this site. I like the street edge scape, the landscaping. It will provide, I was unaware about the affordable housing, but that's a bonus. But it does provide some more housing choices for that area, which is really well served Gordon and Grant. So, and I think it's the last piece of property we have left on the corridor. There may be another one somewhere, but this would be when I first got elected 15 years ago. That was one of the projects. Was they had a big battle over what we can do with this. We're going to put a transit line through there, or what are we going to do? Well, we now have the housing and the last segment left, so I think it's going to fill a place in. And so, yeah, for those reasons and others, I'm supportive.
Right, any discussion? Absolutely concur. Councilor Orlando, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
But the public hearing to respect this application be concluded.
Great.
Please note,
The variance, sorry.
sorry. Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the zoning agreement amendment.
All right, on the variance then, the move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That receipt of public representation be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
In accordance with subsection 247(3) of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. Excuse me. B, does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. C, is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect from the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property? And D, is compatible with the area in which a property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, same as before.
Favor.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect,
I'm not done yet.
yeah, sorry.
Hey, we got one on you this time.
Yep.
The public hearing with respect to the application be considered.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Over to you.
Okay, now, please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
We'll move on then to the next agenda item, which is the subdivision and rezoning of 666 to 676 McMillan Avenue, and it's a combined with the variance here in two.
So item number 3 is a subdivision and rezoning at 666, 676 McMillan under file DASZ 26 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time, namely item 4, which is a variance at 666 to 676 McMillan Avenue under file DAV 162784 of 2024D. Please note that communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. And I will pass it over to planning for an overview.
Thank you, Clerk. The subject property is located on the southeast corner of McMillan Avenue and Wentworth Street in the McMillan neighborhood of the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry ward. The subject site consists of 5 contiguous properties. It is within the mature communities policy area, is approximately 18,000 square feet in size, and is currently vacant. In 2022, City Center Community Committee approved a variance for a building with 39 units and 4 stories, which was later upheld on appeal. Also in 2022, Council approved the associated subdivision rezoning to RMFL. However, the bylaw expired, and as such, a new subdivision or rezoning application has been applied for. The applicant seeks to consolidate the underlying lots and rezone to RMFL and variances for lot area, yards, and parking in order to establish a 45-unit multifamily building. 34 parking spaces are provided, mostly underground with some off the lane. A car share vehicle is also being provided, and secure indoor parking for 28 bikes is provided as well. The building is a mix of 3- and 4-story construction. The 3-story component forms the portion closest to the east property line. The design employs varied roof lines, building setbacks, building articulation, balconies, and substantial cladding materials, including BrickTech. Through the planning process, the applicant agreed to ensure that the easterly 20 feet of building mass is stepped down to 3 stories. which is provided. They agreed to not have any balconies projecting into the west side yard. The applicant indicates that they conducted 3 rounds of public consultation in 2020 and in 2024. The development includes conditions for arborist oversight, a car share vehicle, and director plan approval prior to release of permits. The division supports the applications because the proposal increases neighborhood population and contributes to physical renewal and revitalization of an older neighborhood, supports aging in place by adding new housing options in an established neighborhood, includes yard setbacks, variable building heights, and ample landscaping, and is consistent with the policies of the Court and Osmond area plan. That's the introduction to public service.
Yeah, are there any questions at this juncture, Councilor Gordon?
A bit my question, we're like, how long is this? How, like, the frontage is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties? So is that, 5 times 50? So that 2,000, like how much massing is this on? I know that he showed, there's examples here of other properties, like the one across the street on McMillan. But this one seems to be the biggest of the bunch. Is that correct, or am I?
This one's approximately 150 feet wide, and the one directly across Hugo from it is also 150 feet wide. The other 2 corners are slightly narrower in width, but they're all larger than average corner property lot width.
Okay. No, but it's 150.
It's about 150,
So it's
152.
generally 3 lots, the general 50.
It's 5 underlying lots.
There's some 25s in there, I guess.
A couple 25s in
Yeah,
there.
fine. Okay, that's why it's going, oof, that's, if it's 50 times that many properties, that's the whole block. So it's not, there's that many properties, but it's 150. Not that keen on the 150, but I mean, more, I'll listen forward and listen to the council as well. Okay, go ahead.
Any further questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on.
Okay, we have the applicants here with us today. You guys want to come back up to the table?
We gotta keep them here a little longer for parking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're right in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
I think you request them or advising.
Hi.
All right. All right, so my name is Brendan Salico. I'm a planner partner at Landmark Planning and Design, and I'm joined by my colleague Brendan Johnson. And before we get started, just want to thank the committee, the administration, the clerk, and of course, all those who are here for what we think is a very exciting proposal for McMillan Avenue. So in terms of our project team, Paragon Design Build, the local Winnipeg developer and builder, Affinity Architecture led the site and building design process. And our firm, we led the planning, stakeholder engagement, and development approvals processes for the site. So as was noted, in terms of the application history, a similar development proposal was approved for the site by this committee back in January of 2022. And due to the technicality of not being able to get things registered prior to the expiry, as per procedural requirements, we're back here with a new application, a new hearing, but a very similar bulk design and aesthetic of the original proposal with some minor tweaks as noted by the planner. In terms of the site context, 5 lots, 18,000 square feet approximately, about 150 feet wide. To the north, we have McMillan Avenue. To the west, we have Hugo Street. To the south, a rear lane. And then directly to the east, an existing duplex, about 2.5 stories at 664 McMillan Avenue. In terms of the neighborhood context, we feel that the site is very well suited to support this type of development. It's well served by transit with several routes within about a 2-minute walk of the site. It is located in proximity to the existing and expanding active transportation network. It's also situated in an intersection where each of the other three corners do have multifamily buildings of 3 and 4 stories. And the surrounding neighborhood, of course, has an abundance of commercial services and recreational amenities and retail, which can benefit from new residents. We won't spend too much time in the overarching our Winnipeg and Complete Communities policy context, but suffice it to say that there are several objectives, policies, and goals for mature communities that encourage this type of development, providing a variety of housing types, tenures, expanding housing options, increasing population in our existing neighborhoods, and revitalizing some of our older blocks. There's another layer of plan in this area, which is the Gordon Osborne Secondary Plan, and it's a planned development overlay. This particular site falls within the higher density residential policy area. The policies for that specific land use designation also call for higher density to 4 stories on corners. Intensification is encouraged through increased densities and infill. Buildings are to have a strong interface with the streets, so both Hugo and McMillan, to enhance the public realm, and high quality architectural design is promoted. So we'll jump right into the proposed design. As noted, it is 45 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, 3 bedroom units being able to accommodate families. 10% are affordable under that CMHC MLI Select programming. 34 underground and surface parking stalls, the Peg City Car Co-op vehicle install, and then exterior visitor bike parking, as well as indoor secure bike parking for residents. Design was a key feature. There's, of course, a series of design guidelines within the secondary plan that we worked with the administration to ensure that those were all addressed as part of this proposal. Just a few of them: articulated windows and entrances, direct pedestrian connections for those ground floor units on both McMillan and Hugo, and then various architectural elements to really reflect the neighborhood character, including the varied roof lines, variable building setbacks, the balcony placement, and the cladding materials. So a few renderings to get a sense of what is being proposed here. Here's a view looking directly south across McMillan Avenue for an overview of the project. Here we're looking towards the southwest, towards that McMillan and Hugo intersection. You can see those direct pedestrian connections for those ground floor units. Here we're looking southeast from the corner of Hugo and McMillan. Again, the one change on this rendering is that those balconies on the west side will now be Juliet balconies because we worked with the public administration to ensure that there wouldn't be balconies projecting on that side as not to impact the tree canopy along Hugo. As Mr. Ross mentioned, we worked to address a step down to bring it down to 3 stories for that last bay of units to match the height of that duplex more closely directly to the east. And then finally, just giving a sense of what it would look like from mid-block McMillan looking out towards Hugo. Again, you can see that this kind of fits with that aesthetic, with that feel at the existing intersection. And then just lastly, the proposal there at the top and the existing buildings in the foreground and the left and the right. You can see that this does kind of fit in with the scale and the bulk of the existing buildings at the intersection. Briefly touch on design considerations. So again, there is a series, excuse me, take a quick sip here.
Okay, good. If you need water, let me know.
Yeah, thank you. So we did go under, the proposal did undergo design review process as part of the application. So again, the design reflects the surrounding residential character. Parking areas provide appropriate screening and help preserve the residential character of the area. The building includes variable setbacks across the facade, direct connections to the sidewalk, as we noted. Again, the windows and entrances are well articulated, and the design really integrates seamlessly into the existing neighborhood. We really did, the architect took cues, particularly from the Brentwood Lodge directly across the street in terms of color palette, materials, and other design elements. Actually, you can see that here on this slide. Brentwood Lodge being on the left there. You can see similar colors, similar window treatments, and definitely a similar scale as well. And the other two are on the other two corners. So briefly, our approach to public consultation and stakeholder engagement, as was noted, there were 2 rounds prior to that initial application. And then we had another round earlier this year prior to resubmitting the application, where we met with nearby residents, neighbors, and stakeholder groups in the area as well. So what we did is we worked proactively with the design team and the project team and the developer to proactively address those concerns and comments that did come up throughout the process. So we heard concerns about building design, or not concerns, more people emphasized that they wanted to see, really high quality building design and an aesthetically pleasing building, which we think we've been able to achieve, particularly through some of those materials and then the step down at the mid block. There were definitely some concerns about traffic and parking, which I think is very common to infill developments in the city. The proposal again features parking off the rear lane as well as underground. Visitor parking is included, 1 stall, as well as secure indoor and outdoor bike parking. And then of course that Peg City Car Co-op stall as well. In terms of shadows, we did a shadow study, and again, we're surrounded on 3 sides by right-of-way. The fact that we're on the south side of McMillan, for the majority of the day, those shadows are going to be over Hugo and over McMillan. So the shadow impacts for this proposal are minimal. We also heard folks say that they wanted to make sure that the project was context sensitive. So again, we've kind of updated this design. It really features a timeless look similar to many of the historic or heritage buildings on this stretch and elsewhere in the neighborhood, for example, on Lilac. In terms of trees and green space, the landscaping plan is included as part of this application. And again, some changes were made to ensure preservation of the tree canopy on Hugo. And then in terms of construction, folks were, had some concerns, which I think are typical about things like piling, for example. So again, Paragon adheres to a set of courteous construction guidelines above and beyond the city requirements, and try to stay in close contact with neighbors when major construction events will be happening, like deliveries or like the piling, for example. Just lastly, before we conclude, just want to touch on City of Winnipeg collaboration. So again, we worked very closely with the public service, particularly Mr. Ross and his team at planning, but other departments as well. Many of their recommendations we were able to incorporate in the final design. So some of those, the setback, the step down, the changes to the west facade, to preserve that tree canopy, and some other design elements as well. And we agreed with the recommendations as per the public or the planning report, as well as the HCG report. So just in summary, again, we feel this is an excellent proposal for this site. It's located in an area that's very well suited to support it. It addresses the policies not only of our higher order planning documents like our Winnipeg Incomplete Communities, but the secondary plan and its PDO as well. It increases housing choice to meet resident life cycle needs while paying homage to the existing neighborhood character and context. It's an accessible building, which is rare for some of the older buildings in the area. It addresses resident and stakeholder concerns while mitigating potential impacts. And then finally, it's the result of several years of collaboration, not only with stakeholders, residents, and neighbors, but with the City of Winnipeg administration as well. So with that, thank you for your consideration on this file, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of this juncture, councilors? On this?
I do. Just curious. So is that a green roof that you have?
Yeah, actually, so it's not a green roof, but on the step down portion where it goes to 3 stories on the east side, the idea would be to have a rooftop patio. So it'd be a smaller one, and that's actually another thing that we worked on the admin with, was ensuring there's appropriate buffering just to make sure that, the patio didn't go right up to the edge, concerns about noise and things like that. So.
Okay, thank you. Jumping off from your comments with respect to accessibility, can you expand?
Yeah, for sure. So the main thing is this building will be fully accessible with the elevator. There's a ramp actually on the front going to the McMillan frontage. So there'll be no step entry at that front part. And then the units as well. So there will be some of the standard ones that Paragon has done in their buildings that are promoting accessibility, are the like the not having doorknobs, but the sure what are the latch, the ones that are easier to turn, wider entrances to the suites themselves, and then fully accessible elevator as well. The wider ones that can accommodate a wheelchair and such.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
We'll move on.
I just want to correct the record. We actually didn't receive any submissions in opposition. They were only in support. So just to correct that. And we have no one else registered to speak in support of the application. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support of this application whose name hasn't been called? Anyone in opposition or for information whose name hasn't been called and wishes to speak? Nope.
Motions, councillors?
Want me to do it?
You can, yeah.
I shall. There we are. Subdivision rezoning first. Let the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
Aye.
The receipt of public notification be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That the recommendation of the public service be concurred in and forwarded this to Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The reasons for all to do it is it does fit the context of the neighborhood. The care they put into making the design fit is quite appreciated. The step down on the end building is appreciated. Materials are very good. Accessibility is very good. So those are just some of the reasons besides the housing choice that it puts in the neighborhood. It will have an impact. I think we will add people to it, and there will be a little bit of the traffic issue, but we're going to work that through anyways. But I think it's a good addition to the neighborhood.
No, just it's a really nice project. It's very fits in very well with the neighborhood. So
Yeah, I completely agree. With respect to impacts, there's always construction impacts. The community has pretty much seen this proposal before in a different configuration and had comments around that time around concerns around parking. It feels like, we were looking it up in advance of the hearing because it just feels like 2 years ago for City Center, I think, where we saw it. There's been impacts, as people wait with an empty lot and concerned about, bylaw enforcement, frankly, of lawns and stuff that aren't mowed. But I completely agree that this is a very thoughtful design and time to get going. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
But the public hearing with respect to the application be concluded.
All those in favor?
aye.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
The variance?
The report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Receipt of public representation be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That in accordance with subsection 2473 of the Winnipeg Charter, the variance A is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and applicable to second plan. D does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenity, use, safety, convenience of the adjoining property, adjacent area, including area separated from the property by a street and or waterway. C is a minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect on the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property, and D is compatible with the area in which a property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, same as before.
Same as before. Really important, the design here, and important that it's, it congruous with the secondary design. All those in favor?
Aye.
That the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
Aye.
And that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
Aye.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Moving on to Wellington Crescent, subdivision rezoning.
Item 5 is a subdivision and rezoning at 611 to 633 Wellington Crescent under file DAS said 27 of 2021. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely item 6, which is a variance at 611 to 633 Wellington Crescent under file DAV 150910 of 2024D. Please note that communications were received in support of and one in opposition to the variance, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. And pass it to planning for an overview.
Thank you, Clerk. The property is located on the north side of Wellington Crescent, 3 properties west of Maryland Avenue in the Wellington Crescent neighborhood of the River Heights, Fort Garry Ward. The site is designated mature community under complete communities. It is approximately 123,000 square feet in size and is currently vacant. The property is currently zoned R1M and is proposed for rezoning to the RMFS district. The applicant seeks a subdivision rezoning to consolidate 8 underlying lots and variances for yards, pedestrian route, parking aisle, parking buffering, and fencing in order to build a multifamily development containing 14 detached houses. All homes will face and connect to Wellington Crescent. Landscaping, including new trees, will be provided. Pedestrian connections and bike parking will be provided. Through the planning process, the applicant agreed to ensure that the dwellings against Wellington Crescent face the street, ensure front yard fencing is no higher than 5 feet and is transparent and decorative, provide individual street-facing entrances for the Wellington-facing homes with individual access points from the public sidewalk in order to align with the physical context of dwellings along Wellington Crescent. Provide an arborist report, provide the pedestrian connections, and provide secure bike parking. The applicant indicates that they conducted public open house on May 30th, 2023 at 603 Wellington Crescent, which is directly adjacent to the subject property. The development includes a condition for arborist oversight. It also includes a zoning agreement requiring that the developer submit a comprehensive geotechnical engineer's report addressing riverbank erosion, slope stability, and flood risks. A waterway permit is required. The developer is required to adhere to floodproofing criteria. And finally, a director plan approval condition is required to be submitted prior to the release of permits. The division supports the application because at 1 to 2 stories in height and on a collector street, the proposal is supportable under complete communities. The requested variances are supportable for this urban mature community context and in consideration of site constraints imposed by the riverbank property. The development supports aging in place by adding new housing options in an established neighborhood and having the pedestrian connections. Approval with the recommended conditions will ensure riverbank waterway and servicing considerations are addressed. That's the intro from public service.
Questions of this structure, Councilor Olacone?
Yeah, and maybe for you or maybe for the applicant. So we're putting an application forward. Are we aware? Like, I know the biggest problem for that property is riverbank. How far is it falling into the river? Which will impact where they can put those units. So explain to me when they come back to they submitted the geophysical riverbank stuff. Like we kind of know it's okay where they want to build, or do we have?
My understanding is they've had their own engineers look at the site.
Okay.
And the city does, and their estimation was that this development can proceed.
Okay.
However, the city also has a requirement that a geotech engineer's report be submitted later that they can review and confirm.
Generally, believe one, and I'll ask the applicant. They've done already. They have. I'm assuming they have.
It's been already looked at, and it'll be looked at further
Further down the
before
line.
issuance of permits.
Okay. That's my question at this point. Thanks.
Further questions? All right, we'll move on.
Okay, we have the applicant here with us today. So John Winthrop, if you want to come up, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
I have a fancy presentation. Go through here. Let me plug it in. Let me figure out how to plug it in.
The USB port is on the other
This
side.
side, okay.
Yeah. And then just make sure you screen share your presentations.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. I'm learning how to do that. Okay, let's see. You know what? That's not mine.
It's so similar.
Yeah, yeah, we're not doing that. There we go.
Okay, I gotta go back to here, share it.
Mr. Winthrop, are your columns in the sun as you're setting up here? Will that be a regular column about planning?
I get a lot of getting more people asking me if I want to write regular columns. We'll see.
Okay,
I'm undecided this time what I want to do.
all right. It's a personal question. My apologies for.
No worries. Yeah, I've
It's
been
filling time.
getting requests for people asking me to write columns lately. I'll answer that question right away for the geotechnical counselor, but I think it is important. That study is almost, I'd say, like 90 to 95% done. The proponents have been engaging their engineers with the water and waste engineers. I know there's been a transition there as well as with water and waste. That study's, I think, going to be done in, I want to say in the next like weeks, like done. And so they've looked at it and they were asked to look at it. They did a pre-application on this matter and that is nearly done.
Yeah, we've got, sorry, I can answer if you like.
It's okay.
I can help.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Yes.
No worries.
It's
you-
by nature.
I know, I know your nature, it's all good.
Yeah, I know you're too, Mark. Thanks for being
If you
here.
want to join us at the table and Mr. Winthrop wants to share his time, you have to join us at the table, otherwise.
We'll answer that at the end. We'll go through the presentation because it's wonderful. I've worked with everybody on it to get it done here. We're here for 611 Wellington Crescent. You know who I am here. I'm John Winthrop, professional planner. We're representing the landowners. We're at the public hearing today. I'm the applicant for subdivision rezoning. We're at the public hearing at City Center Community Committee for 14 dwelling units. We're looking to do 1-story, 14 residential detached dwelling units, a bungalow condo type development. We need a subdivision rezoning and some variances. 611 Wellington Crescent is described by the planning department's north side between Academy and Harrow, about 300 feet west of Academy Road. It's an intensification target area. It's in the Jesse Combined Sewer District. It is in Area 1 of the new PDO1 Mature Communities Overlay Map, even though we submitted this application back in March. That bylaw just came in July. A lot of amenities within 15 minutes from Calvin High School to Misericordia Hospital to the Grove Pub. The current transportation for transit is on the screen now with downtown routes, express routes. 2025, we are going to have actually multiple direct routes on Academy Road nearby, Grosvenor. We're within 100 meters of a D11, 28, 89 on Academy, and 500 meters of the D16 on Stafford. I think Wellington Crescent is a well-known cycling route. Wellington Crescent, I'm sure everybody has driven down it, is our front street. It's has front driveways, landscape boulevards. There's no parking restriction in front of our property. It's a P2 street, it's 400 feet wide. Surrounding lands are all on RM1. There are detached dwellings directly across the street that are 2 stories. As you can tell, there are, I'd say, different design types and styles there, from more classical to more modern looking. At the corner is the church. Right next door to us is also a church, a place of worship, 603 Wellington Crescent. And to the west of us is a 2-story house with a wrought iron fence, 4.5 feet tall, 4.3 feet tall. Our lands actually have, there are 8 underlying lots that are zoned R1M. So we have 8 lots that in theory, my client could go get 8 land titles at land titles office and build like 8 single family dwellings, probably with some variances. We have a special yard along Wellington Crescent under the zoning bylaw that's 80 feet. So the front yard is 80 feet established along Academy Road through the schedule in the back of the zoning bylaw. So it's not the typical 25 feet. On the subject lands, there are 13 trees in the public boulevard. As far as we know, their condition is good. With our property to the west, there are multiple trees along the common property line. Those trees are remaining. We have 8 trees in the front yard that are right at the front where those are remaining. There are 3 concrete driveways existing to the vacant property right now. We want to rezone the land to RFM small, consolidate those 8 underlying lots into 1 lot, and then we need some variances. I'll go through those variances pretty quickly. We're looking to construct 14 essentially houses, single-story houses, about 25 feet in tall. The image on the right is what would face towards Academy, towards a Wellington Crescent. The back of the house would be where the parking is, so we don't want driveways or anything like that. Fronting Wellington, we're gonna have the house faces. We have various setbacks. We're gonna have the landscape front yard with shrubbery and trees, existing trees. There are 8 trees that are existing. We're gonna add 17 new trees along shrubbery. I suspect that'll be covered off in a plan approval. We're gonna have a small parking area on the west side for guest parking. We're keeping one of the driveways, just one. So there's 3 now. We're going to keep the most westerly driveway. That approach will be retained for the access to the property. So we're eliminating 2 of the driveways. The one driveway comes out about 400 feet away from the house at 642. We're rezoning to multifamily small. We need a front yard setback of 15 feet instead of actually the alignment came in at 85 feet. We are going to have a 4-foot wide pedestrian connection, internal pathway that connects to the front sidewalk. We have our parking area on the west side that has a 20-foot front yard. We're going to landscape that parking area with shrubbery and trees. Our aisle width internally is 18 feet. So essentially it's going to be an 18-foot aisleway with a 4-foot pedestrian walkway next to it. Comes out to 22 feet wide. We've engaged the fire department. They've told us they're fine with this. Our variance to the east side yard is small. It's related to 2 parking stalls, guest parking along our east property line that goes up against a fence and against the parking area next door to us. It's a lack of landscaping there and a 0-foot east side yard, there 4 feet. There are trees along there. And there are shrubbery on our neighbor's property as well, and there will be a wrought iron fence there. But this is the type of wrought iron fence, typical wrought iron fence. We're asking for a 5-foot tall wrought iron fence along the front property line along Wellington Crescent. You're only allowed to have 4 feet, I believe. The neighbor next door has 4.3 feet. What will screen the existing dwelling to the west of us? The existing trees along that property line will maintain. I believe the city wants an arbitrous report on that item. Some of those trees are on our neighbor's land. So you can see there's existing trees along the west property line, along the east property line. Those trees are remaining. The 4-foot walkway connects to the public sidewalk. The 18-foot drive aisleway is internal. It connects to Wellington Crescent. These would be private. The private road, private walkway, not public. Parking, we are going to have 2 parking stalls inside each garage, 2 parking stalls on each driveway, which we tandem parking. We did not ask for a variance for that. There are 9 parking stalls available on site for a total of 37 total parking stalls. We're going to have 32 bicycle parking walk-ups. There's lots of diverse land uses within 15 minutes nearby cycling. Our houses are going to be outside the flood fringe area. So there is the flood fringe area. Our houses are going to be outside of that. We're going to do a retaining wall, whatever works the geotechnical engineers say we have to do for the flooding and the riverbank. We're not going to have any houses within the flood area. That's the front of the house. It's going to be towards Wellington. Again, we're going to have a front of a dwelling facing towards Wellington. They'll be landscaped with a wrought iron fence. Some of them will actually have individual walkways coming out to Wellington. We're looking at doing something like that. We did public engagement, as the planning department indicated nearby. My clients undertook that in person back on May of last year. So like again, we're looking to rezone the land to small, put in 1-story, 14 detached dwelling units, 37 parking stalls, 32 bicycle parking. That's what we're looking for today. The rezoning, the subdivision to consolidate those lots, and some variances.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Councilor Orlego?
Yeah, thanks for that last part there about the flood zone. That's what I was concerned about. But you're off that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So push it up. That backspace will be left for the flood zone or riverbanks. Thanks for answering that question. There'll be there's one I had, and thanks for the consultation. I had a number of people call about this application when you're doing that, and you guys answered the questions quite well. So once we send it back to you, they came back and said, thank you very much. So I appreciate that. You see that kind of today. We do have one letter in opposition regarding the fence height. So before they come up and speak why they want it to be 4 feet rather than 5 feet, can you explain to me why you want to have 5 feet rather than 4 feet?
Sure. So I think it's important for the public realm right away and then the private realm to be very addressed. That's a big thing. We measured the fence next door. We looked at the front yard. We're bringing our dwellings a lot closer up than I'd say some of the other houses, which will create a nice, it's on the bend there, a little bit more residential feel. We're going to heavily landscape it. We don't want the houses too close, but close enough. Just a feeling of security. It's wrought iron fence. It won't be wood. It won't be, we're not going with that. Certainly I would not definitely want a all wood fence in the front yard along there. But I think wrought iron is appropriate along there for a design. The requirement under the city bylaw is 4 feet. We're asking for just 12 inches, 5 feet. Just more for a sense of safety and security that it is, we're trying to address that private public realm, but we still want to make sure it's clearly defined that this is private land, not a park land. But we're hoping to landscape it enough that it looks like a park land, but there's a good clear definition. And we think the 5-foot wrought iron fence will do that. If it was wood board, I'd be raising that as a concern myself. I think with wrought iron, it'll match what's going on next door and in the neighborhood. 12 inches, I think will just really address more the idea that this is still private.
And last question, and again, because I'm not sure what the name of what's called, and it doesn't really matter, but we've had these other condo type of lateral condos, like
A bungalow condo
Yeah.
in the States is called a cottage court.
that's it, yeah,
Yeah.
that term. So you're doing something a little unique that we don't have that many of them in the city of Winnipeg. So, and the Wellington Crescent does want to retain that park theme. They're not looking for getting rid of this, the park theme. So who's going to maintain that? This is gonna be a condo. So would a third party maintain that?
Yeah, like any other management company would maintain it probably to a higher degree than individual landowners because they're paid a fee and they're out there shoveling the snow and cutting the grass and maintaining the shrubbery and stuff like that. So there's a lot of condo projects along Wellington Crescent. I live in one. Other places that are very well landscaped, usually the condo board hires a management team that will come in there and the management team will ensure the property. I'm lucky my condo board does a great job and my snow is cleared off quicker than the street.
Yeah.
So private sector management company will come in there, maintain the property. I think something like this is you're likely to get more empty nesters. So they're going to rely on a management team to look after the property and it's ideal for them and it's ideal for, I think, the neighborhood for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you.
I don't actually have anyone else registered to speak in support. Is there anyone whose name hasn't been called who wishes to speak in support of this application? Okay. Our first person in opposition is Brent Bellamy.
Morning.
I wanted to come here to make sure that it was on public record that what is being proposed here is a gated community. To me, gated communities are not the way forward for our mature neighborhoods. Gated communities are less open, less welcoming, less inviting, and less connected. When you create a gated island in an existing neighborhood, the disconnect makes the rest of the neighborhood feel less welcoming and less safe. The planning department clearly agrees with this because they went out of their way in the report to stress that the side facing Wellington is the front. We've heard it here 20 times already today. The submitted floor plans, however, are unambiguous that the main entry is on the internal street side. The rooms facing Wellington are living spaces like the master bedroom and the family room. What we're seeing here is labeled deck. And you can even see in this rendering, it's kind of funny. Does that look like the front? Where's the path? I get
Order,
that.
Please.
I get that.
No, I'm gonna just lay down some rules right now, okay? You may be apologizing, but I'm going to intervene and I get to speak because I'm the chair and you're still speaking. Right? So we're not shouting from the benches. I've invited you to the table. You did not come. Now, we're gonna just maintain decorum. We're not interrupting speakers. No one, you continue to interrupt me, by the way. I've heard your apology. I need you to understand the rules. We're not shouting from the benches and we're not intervening. unless it's organized. People will have an opportunity, as you always do, to rebut, and you'll be allowed that full opportunity. You might get questions again, but we're going to maintain decorum. And so far, so good, Mr. Bellamy will continue, but there'll be no further interruptions. And I think everyone understands. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bellamy.
I would simply ask if it truly is the front, where's the closet that you put your boots and jacket? Because that to me says what a front is. But that's not really the issue. The developer will likely tell you they want the fences and gates for safety and security. It's funny, I wrote that this morning, and those were the exact 2 words that were said. But hiding our new developments behind fortifications, even wrought iron ones, punish existing residents by making their neighborhoods feel less safe. We can't stop this developer from putting a gate on their private driveway because we're here to talk about specific variances. We can, however, talk about the request for a 5-foot-high fence with lockable gates surrounding the entire property. Imagine if every yard in River Heights or any other mature neighborhood in Winnipeg had a 5-foot fence surrounding the property facing the sidewalk. How would that feel? What would that make our neighborhoods feel like? We have blanket bylaws to meet collective planning goals. The 4-foot fence bylaw is to ensure our neighborhoods are open, safe, and welcoming. We have a variance process because sometimes there are unique site conditions or extenuating circumstances that require changes to bylaws to make developments viable. Typically, a change is granted when it's offset by some other public benefit. Smaller setbacks yielding higher densities is an example. The burden is on the developer to explain why they can't meet the bylaw requirements to justify the variance. To be clear, there are no unique conditions or circumstances here. They can easily meet the conditions of the bylaw. They just don't want to. Wanting to live in a gated community is not adequate justification to grant this variance. Developers not wanting to follow bylaws is not sufficient reason to approve variances. You're probably saying right now, Mr. Bellamy, why did you take your time off work and come down here to complain about a 1-foot difference? Why does it matter? I will turn that around and say, I agree. It's only 1 foot. So why does it matter? If the developers are being honest with us in their intent to create true front yards that are open.
Mr. Bellamy, I am gonna stop you in terms of a point of decorum because whether or not a developer is being honest isn't really is skating
Sure.
a bit of a line here because it's very close to talking about dishonesty. So in terms of decorum, I'm gonna stop you and redirect a bit, but I
Sure.
think you can make your point.
Yep. Thank you. If the intent is that front yards that are accessible to the community and open to the community if that is the intent, so the Amazon guy or visiting friends can walk up from the street and knock on the front door, then a 4-foot-high fence that is required in the city bylaw should be more than adequate. My last sentence is actually what you just said, so I won't say it. I believe completely that the 4-foot bylaw is adequate in this case. If the intent is to create a front yard, the previous presenter did not really give a real reason why a 5-foot fence is required and a 4-foot fence is not, other than security. And as I said, creating that gated community makes it less safe for everybody else. So I feel like it's a very simple ask. I don't believe we should grant that single variance. Thank you.
Well, I have questions, but councilors, do you have questions?
Go ahead, please.
So, there are, with respect to the variances, you are taking issue with one of the variances. As a matter of fact, the 1 foot difference within one of the variances.
Correct.
Because you're characterizing it as a gated community that you're in opposition to. And moreover, you're alleging that the wrought iron fence, that treatment it constitutes fortification, which means a militaristic construct. Wrought iron fence, really typical of the 19th century architecture that surrounds Crescentwood. So help me to understand that when, these are the blacksmith artistry that is present everywhere. My next door neighbor has one, for instance. Very concerned when, hyper puppies, might jump over and impale themselves on this beautiful thing. But other than that, it doesn't connote necessarily anything more than the architecture of the time and the tradition of blacksmiths in the area that, worked that iron ore. So how come that suggests fortification to you when, you know that it's present throughout the neighborhood in Crescentwood and all along Wellington, in fact?
I know that it's not typical to have a 5-foot fence, and I know that it's actually not allowed. It requires a variance from council. When we see those wrought iron fences, typically they're 4 feet, and typically they span 1 yard. We are talking about a fence that wraps an entire development of 14 properties. That's a completely different condition than to say that it's just a typical fence. This is a fence wrapping an entire development. That's a very different condition than a single house having a fence on the sidewalk. And I don't even believe a single house on the sidewalk should have a 5-foot fence with a gate. That's the reason we have the 4-foot bylaw. Ask yourself why we have that 4-foot bylaw. It's to be open and welcoming. It's to create a visual connection. Having a 5-foot fence with spikes on the top and lock gates all the way around and a gate at the entrance is fortification. You can see through it for sure, but it's saying to everybody, he said that the reason we want is to denote the fact that this is private property. Putting a fence all the way along that property on the sidewalk is not typical, even though the architecture of it might be. Doing that is not typical. It will feel like a fence that goes for a full city block. That's not the intent of the bylaw, and there was nothing said by the presenter to suggest that they can't meet that bylaw. If he had said, we need to do that because of some other, it makes the density or makes the development better for some reason other than it makes our residents feel safer, but it makes other people not feel safe, then I reject that as a legitimate concern.
Anybody?
Good. Thank you.
We have no one else registered in opposition to speak. Is there anyone whose name hasn't been called who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak for information? None? Yep, they can. If there's questions for the public service, maybe we should consider those.
Sure, why not? When an application gets down to a foot fence, I'm pretty happy. Because it is a decent infill. I'm gonna, but on that point, the issue of, and I just quickly went through my little googly stuff, and there's been a number of new developments along Wellington Crescent. Some people love them, some people don't. Doesn't really matter. That's everybody has their own choice. But they're all the new ones. The fences are low. The fences are 3 feet, maybe 4 feet. And some of the properties have a very large fence in front of the driveway, then goes down to 4 feet. Some of them have large shrubs that are behind the 4-foot fence, so you can't even see the 4-foot fence because they're large, a little bit older estate houses. So what's the rationale, mostly on precedent, which is where I'm going, I'm nervous. We allow a 5-foot fence here, and another development comes by, would I not have to allow them to have a 5-foot fence? Because we've now set a precedent of allowing 5 feet fences, which I'm sure some of these other properties that built would have probably done this to higher fence as well, because they actually are trying to, the couple of newer homes really saying, please don't come in here at all, don't even try. And they're very hard, strong fences. So what's the rationale from the administration to say, you know what, it's a foot, it won't be a big thing? Or what is the rationale? I'm not sure what.
Yeah, the way that our division looked at this one was as a compromise approach. So what was the initial request was to have a 6-foot high fence in the front yard. And we asked them to meet the 4 feet. And they came back and said, what about we meet in the middle 5 feet? And we said, will it be transparent and decorative? And they said we can do that. And then we took it back and thought about it. And I thought 1 foot, when you add to that the fact that it's also transparent and decorative, seemed like not a very high degree of a variance and supportable. If you had a fence that was 5 feet in solid wood, that would be another story. Even 4-foot high fences that are solid wood kind of create more of a barrier feel. So we viewed it as a compromise approach. That's how it happened.
Anything further?
No.
Okay.
I'll let them respond to the sidewalk issue.
Okay.
So, John, you have an opportunity to rebut, no new information, but you have up to 10 minutes for your rebuttal.
Well, I'd like to thank the speaker for his passionate defense of fencing in River Heights. I know he's left, so he's not here to hear my comments about the fencing. This property is one of the unique properties along Wellington Crescent that has a sidewalk right along its property line. Most of the other properties don't have the sidewalk. The sidewalk starts running down the median, down the road. On the other side of the street, there is no sidewalk on the south side. So we are on the north side with the sidewalk. So we have a lot more pedestrian people walking in front of this property. I've noted that. I've gone down the street many times. A lot of people heavily use this sidewalk to get down to the median sidewalk or to go elsewhere or to Harrow Beach. So we have a lot more people walking by than you would say typically along Wellington Crescent. The fence, again, is, I've said, to address the private public realm, to clearly establish that this is private property. It's not public property. We think a 5-foot fence meets that. Ideally, we'd like to have individual walkways from the front doors to the front street, and there would be a gate there. That's what we're looking to do, and we cover that off in a plan approval. So again, local residents or Amazon delivery or whoever is attending the property, those folks who front onto Wellington Crescent, they can stop in front of the property, walk up, go through the gate, and get to the front door. Again, it's wrought iron fence. We looked at other fences in the neighborhood. This matches the other neighborhood. Our neighbor directly to the west, who also has a sidewalk, again, one of the few properties along Wellington Crescent with the sidewalk. Their fence is above 4 feet. It's 4.3 to 4.5 feet. I measured it myself. So these properties have a little bit more fencing than I'd say other properties that are further to the west along Wellington Crescent that have no sidewalk adjacent to their yards. So that's why we're looking for the fencing. I'll quickly address I should add, there's 4 tests for looking at a variance. I think this one meets all 4. There's nothing in Plan Winnipeg. It matches with the surrounding area. It doesn't negatively impact anybody. And it's a minimum modification of the zoning bylaw. We're only asking for an extra foot for addressing the fence. I'll quickly comment on the idea of this is an infill project. It's not a gated community. If you look and you can Google it, pocket neighborhoods or cottage courts, something that is considered missing middle housing. There's a whole webpage dedicated to this. I've researched the entire history of the things going back to the 1920s in Los Angeles. They're more popular type of development you see in Seattle and Portland, not so much in Winnipeg, but this is an infill missing middle type of housing development of a cottage court would be the name for it. Bungalow condo is reused for it, or pocket neighborhood would be the other term used for it that we're locating here. The fence is going to be semi-transparent, wrought iron. This is not a gated community in terms of a 8-foot tall chain link fence or wood board fence that you would define as a gated community. Those are my comments. We're looking to subdivide, rezone it, consolidate the lots, and we'll cover design elements. We produce, I believe, guidelines for the planning department. They asked for that, but we'd be looking to come forward to community in the future for the design of the front of the building and the private public realm.
So now we're into the motions portion.
All right, and on the subdivision rezoning part, yeah, the report of the Winnipeg Public Service taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, the receipt of public invitation be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forward to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Supporting reasons, there's a lot of pride on Wellington Crescent. So this application gave me a lot of history of that property. So I was concerned I was nervous of what would happen. But now we had a little moment there where some trees were cleared, and that was another moment. But again, you see today, we have one person in opposition regarding the fence height, which is their legit right to do that. For the rest, no. We have the rest of the neighborhood. We have some supporters, but we also, our office hasn't received a lot of phone calls. The idea of having, I know we're into units. We like to create units of buildings, but a lot of people don't want to live in an apartment block or a condo when they retire. River Heights, Fort Garry, we have a huge problem right now that we don't have very many places left where you could live in a detached bungalow or place in the neighborhood as you retire. And especially for those snowbirds, having this so someone will take care of the lawn, but you have your own space. I think it'll be very well received in the neighborhood as a housing choice that we don't have a lot of available right now. I like the orientation of the buildings, so we're trying to at least, not have a center courtyard model, which we was worried at the beginning would happen. They have this more of a laid out model, so it kind of does look like a whole bunch of homes facing the street. They've addressed the issues about my concerns regarding the floodplain. That was very good. There'll be high demand for these properties, guaranteed that. It's not going to be no loss on this one. There'll be a lot of people very interested in this. I can guarantee that. I've already heard it from other people. So yeah, I'll get to the various later on, but regarding the subdivision rezoning, it's a unique approach to be able to an infill. So I am supportive.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried unanimously then.
Now the report of the public hearing with respect to the application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Please note the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
And now the matter of variances.
Variance, okay, so on the variance, blah, 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 and I will start us off for discussion for the committee. I'd like to hear what they have to say. But the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
The receipt of public reputation be included.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
That is, okay, Kate, I do want to have a discussion about item number 3 on the variance, which is the fence site.
Okay.
So how do I do that?
So I think you're going to be approving the variance, so you can go through those motions first and make the supporting comments, and then the amendment will come after.
Okay.
And you would just, you don't want to give them the variance for the fence height, is that correct?
I want to have the discussion with the committee
okay.
and see if I'm way off on this one.
Okay, so that's the next motion.
Okay. That in accordance with section 2473 of the City of Wade Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and applicable secondary plan. B does not create a substantial or affecting many use safety convenience adjoining property adjacent area, including areas separated by property by a street or waterway. C is the modification zoning bylaw required to relieve the interest effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant property. And D is compatible with the area it to be effective and situated. They have taken great care to try to make sure this fits in the context of the neighborhood. But I am concerned about number 3, which is the height. There was some good points made out on the fence height. Why I'm concerned, I almost read that as hostile architecture. I'm bringing a big fence so you guys stay out, which is what a fence does. But it's a long stretch of property with a large fence. I do appreciate, again, I'm not sure if it's a deal breaker for me. That's why I want to have discussion with the neighborhood. They point about the fact that it is the major sidewalk. They don't have a median sidewalk, which it does differentiate. But you can also use that argument on any property. You can have a 5-foot fence in the front yard, which would be a concern, I think, for anybody. So I'm not that keen on it. I understand the reasons why, but I think the reasons why is to create a wall that is hostile, to say you can't come in here. This is private property. Which a 4-foot fence would do fine at that level as well. So, but again, I'd like to hear if my colleagues have any other counter opinions on that.
Yeah, I would leave the fence at the 4-foot height. I mean, I have fences all throughout my neighborhood and they're right up against the sidewalk. So I don't see any harm with the fence being 4-foot. I think it still keeps people understanding that it's a it's private property. I think everyone would realize it. I also think Wellington Crescent is a destination area where people go and they do like to look at houses and be able to see into the wonderful yards that are along there. So I think just from somebody who has lots of gates in their community, keeping it at the forefront would allow that pedestrian friendly kind of visibility of the beautiful, because it is going to be a beautiful project. Increasing the height isn't going to change it. It's a beautiful project. So I would keep it up with it. That's what I would do.
You know, I just saw it as a uniformity around the property, and you know, that we are provided in the file a typical example of a wrought iron fence that have different finials and different finishes, and you know, they're flirty on top and sometimes not, right? So I saw it as an attempt to have some sort of uniformity all around the property, and the example that we provided is in keeping. As you know, Councilor Orlico, throughout neighborhoods that have, really, these 19th, sometime 18th century fences, depending on where you are in the city center, they are not a perfect 4 foot, and they're not they are sometimes in between because of the finial finishes, depending on what they are on top. So, I did not, I just saw it as in keeping with what you can still find. I mean, you can find things that are grandfathered in on Wellington, like the brick structures that used to hold the wrought iron fences, that sometimes are disintegrating, sometimes still stand, are hidden between bushes and more. So I just thought it was an attempt at uniformity. I certainly, respect the caution that Mr. Bellamy, put forward. However, I also thought of folks aging in place, and sometimes, with memory care issues and more, fences are very helpful as you age in place. And I did think of the demographics that might be attracted to this, and sometimes fences are very helpful in demarcating. There is a sidewalk there, so there's not necessarily fancy issues. So I really just thought of it as a stylistic thing. And I really like Tyndallstone, and I do like wrought iron sometimes too. And so, for those reasons, I'm prepared to hear from the committee and other thoughts. I don't know if you have thoughts, but I'm the 1 foot difference. I don't really think it's material to the design. And in general, I think the design is quite beautiful.
Fair enough. That's good. I appreciate the committee's feedback.
That's so helpful for you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well, it'd be easier if you both agreed.
But it doesn't bother me either. Like I have gates in my community that are probably taller. I won't get into the bylaws of that.
No, you
And-
do.
Yeah, I
You
do. And I'm fine with that, right? It's unique. So I'm okay with whatever decision.
All right.
I
so
will
we'll
support you on
We'll
that.
just, the administration supportive of it.
Yeah,
They make the argument of the sidewalk. I do believe it's a little not as open. I prefer the no fence, but that's not happening. Like most of the houses along that strip, there are no fences. They're actually just like boulevards and lawns, but that's not being applied today. So the question is, it's 5 versus 4, the big issue. And as Councilor Rollins did point out, there is this property down by Kingsway and Wellington Crescent that we just grandfathered that fence in, which is quite high. It's a full house, and it was designed to be a state house. So based upon that, based upon some of the feedback I received, so I'll just carry on then with no amending.
Okay, so just technically, we're still in the supporting reasons part of the motion.
And that's it. Oh, my supporting reasons for the variance is same as before.
Perfect.
Good discussion.
Mhm.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Okay, and so now you're going to move just the recommendation of the public
Yeah.
service be concurred in.
Be carried in and the variance be approved.
Okay, perfect.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
The public hearings respect the application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very unanimous.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
We have a quick bio break before.
We can. We're gonna break for 5 minute bio break and thank you, Kate.
We grab a coffee. Yes.
And yeah, and we'll be back with the public hearing on Weatherden. Thank you. We're back at City Center in the hearings and we're moving on to 821 Weatherden Avenue.
Item number 7 is a rezoning of 821 Weatherden Avenue under file DAZ 206 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 8, which is a variance at 821 Weatherden Avenue under file DAV 145448 of 2024D. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support, those in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. And I will pass it to planning for an overview. Thanks.
The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Weatherden and Wentworth Street in the Evie Wentworth neighborhood of the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry ward. The applicant is B2K Builders, and they're seeking a rezoning from R1M to RMFS, as well as variances for lot area and front yard setbacks to construct a new 3-unit multifamily dwelling. The surrounding land uses on the block are predominantly single-family dwellings to the east, west, and south, and there are Manitoba Hydro and city-owned parcels to the north, all zone R1M. The subject site is 4,000 square feet in area, an existing single-family dwelling and detached garage on the site. It will be demolished and replaced with a new 2-story triplex. The elevations show 3 high-quality durable building materials, white refinished metal, vertical wood siding, and concrete. There's parking for 4 vehicles that will take access from the rear public lane, and landscaping includes 7 new trees and 21 new shrubs. In terms of collaboration, the applicant revised their plans per recommendations of the division to align with the infill guidelines. And with respect to policy alignment, the subject site is in the established neighborhoods, mature communities, policy area, and complete communities, and it meets the preferred location criteria within the infill guidelines. The public service supports the rezoning and associated variances for the following reasons. The RMFS zoning district is the most suitable zoning district to accommodate the proposed triplex, and in that the subject site is located on a block of Weatherden that's characterized by low to moderate density residential uses that are similar in scale and built form to what is being proposed. And the proposed density is in line with the minimum 1250 square feet lot area per dwelling unit permitted in the RMFS zoning district. And respecting support for the proposed variances, the proposal provides increased residential density with 3 new dwellings, replacing the existing one. The development provides the Evie Wentworth neighborhood a range of housing types and housing options in a pedestrian-oriented, bikeable, transit-connected, service and amenity-rich, mature neighborhood. And the support for the variances to the lot area and front yard setback is based on the development meeting the preferred location criteria outlined in the infill guidelines. The reduced front yard will not adversely impact adjacent properties to the west and the east, since Wentworth Street just to the west serves as a buffer between the proposed dwelling. And since the dwelling to the east at 817 Weatherden has almost an identical front yard setback. Finally, there's nothing to suggest the establishment of a buildable lot less than 9,000 square feet and the construction of a triplex will cause any adverse effect on the existing surrounding properties. And that concludes my summary. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of this juncture, Council?
Yeah, so we're here for a triplex. Why are we here for a rezoning of a triplex at a public hearing? Did we not just pass the bylaw? The triplexes, I think this is a R2 area. So-
R1 area. So yeah, it was before the July 19th council passing. So we went through the application in that format and then, yeah.
Right, because they applied before we passed the other one.
Exactly.
So it's just a
Yeah.
leftover. Okay, got the plan
That's an
tonight.
excellent question, Councilor Orlikow.
Thank you.
Any further? We'll continue.
Okay, we have the applicant here with us, Matthew Viss. If you want to speak to the committee, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation. And then George, are you joining?
Yeah, he's gonna join me.
Okay, perfect.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Vista, president of B2K Builders. Thank you for being here and giving us the opportunity to speak today. B2K is a new company I've started with my partner Brandon Bunkowski, who is not able to attend today. He's acting as our architect, and along with 3 other family members, including George Biss here and Don over there. They are acting as seasoned advisors for the company and investors. We're all born and raised in Winnipeg with a commitment to investing in increasing suitable housing in our city. So our focus is on small scale multifamily infill in mature neighborhoods with gentle density, aiming at bridging the gap between the single family homes and large multifamily apartments. This gap is known as the missing middle, which has become a large part of our mission statement for the company. We are building to keep and invest in the community in the long term with well-designed, high-quality projects that provide desirable alternative housing options other than single-family homes. So for this building, we're proposing an up-down triplex that's on a corner lot while being sensitive to existing neighboring conditions, materials, and roof lines. So our gable roof design is oriented to match the neighborhood context and make the building appear smaller from the street. We're going to use high quality building materials with the pre-finished metal and real wood cladding on the exterior. And the full length balconies along the front with the wing walls and sunken patio offer desirable semi-private outdoor space that breaks up the front facade while adding a front porch for residents, connecting them with the street. The floor plans provide large, nearly 1,000 square foot 3-bedroom units to provide enough space for families or a variety of users. We have worked closely with the city planners to make sure our design falls under the infill guidelines and aligns with the complete community's direction strategy. So the importance of this is by offering a variety of housing options in the existing neighborhoods, we can create affordable, walkable, and lively communities. Flexible and varied living options at this scale of housing can support a wider range of residents, from young professionals to retirees. Triplexes and in some cases fourplexes can offer housing solutions to people at various stages of life and income levels, which ultimately fosters inclusive and diverse communities. So this also enables more people to live in existing neighborhoods while maintaining the single family home feeling and aesthetic. In conclusion, we're asking for the approval of our rezoning application to build an up-down triplex on this desirable corner lot in one of our city's mature and established neighborhoods that has already seen an increase in redevelopment around the area in recent years. So we'll continue to work closely with the city with our goal of bridging the gap of the missing middle. So thank you.
Any questions of this, John, for the councilors? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have no one else registered to speak to the application. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the application? Your name hasn't been called? No, seeing none. Just for the record, there is no one in the gallery, so no one in opposition or for information, and no one has joined us via Zoom.
Excellent. Motions, councilors.
Sure, why don't I keep going?
We're working very hard today, Councilor Olako.
Why, you know, no, I can say what I'm saying. I give them cabin. Sorry about my sheet here. There it is. The Winnipeg the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
Aye.
The receipt of public invitations be concluded.
Aye.
That the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very unanimously.
Pretty well what the applicant said today was quite accurate. It is in context with the neighborhood. Beside it's a 3-story, but it's not a full 3-story. So the roof line matches, the materials are nice, the articulation to the front street is good. And it does provide some extra housing options in the neighborhood that Weatherden and a couple of the mature neighborhoods, many streets and many homes, a lot of them need rejuvenation. They are getting a little bit old. So we need to find a way to do the infill in a contextual sensitive way. And this application does that.
Very well said, Councilor Olako. I don't know if there's any more comments, but I certainly want to say what a beautiful example of missing middle. I'm really excited about this build. And I love the wood treatment in the front and the opportunity for residents to be outside on balconies. Quite beautiful, very exciting project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
The public hearing with respect to the application being concluded.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Please note the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Moving on to the variance.
The report of the public service be taken as read.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
The receipt of public notations be concluded.
All those
Aye. That in accordance with subsection 2473 of the Citywide Charter, the variance A is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and the applicable secondary plan. B does not create a substantial adverse effect on the use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. C is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw of the applicant's property. And D is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. Same reasons above, except I just want to say welcome to the infill world. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
The recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
And the public hearing with respect to the application be concluded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered. And then I'll just introduce the hearings and we can move on to adjournment for 9 and 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so item 9 is a subdivision and rezoning at 134 Plaza Drive under file DAS Z 1 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely item 10, which is a variance at 134 Plaza Drive under file DAV 144204 of 2024 D. And then
Adjournment.
We will move adjournment. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
just to confirm, the committee is adjourning this hearing to its meeting on September 23rd at 10:30 a.m. in the council building.
Should we mention why? People want to know why?
There's,
A posting error.
yeah, that's right.
I'd be more nefarious in that. Yeah.
So moved by Council Orco, that was carried unanimously.
And then Councillor Orlco also moves the same motion on the variance.
That's right. Carried unanimously.
Yep.
And he also moves adjournment
I do.
of the meeting today. Thanks.
Get my name on the record for the year.